Welcome to San Antonio Injury and Employment Law Podcast.
Welcome to the San Antonio Injury and Employment Law Podcast with Trey Cammack, founder of Cammack Law PLLC. Trey is a personal injury attorney based in San Antonio who helps individuals and families navigate serious injury cases with clear, practical approach. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're focusing on one of the biggest questions people face after an accident: how medical treatment gets covered, what injured people should understand about their options, and what happens long before a case ever settles. Trey, welcome back, brother.
Evan, great to see you.
Good to see you too. So Trey, after an accident in Texas, who usually pays the medical bills before a case ever settles?
Well, the client does. And sometimes that's counterintuitive. People say this person they hit me, they caused my injuries in the wreck, so their insurance should pay. But the reality is the client will pay, or their health insurance will pay. And at some point, the third-party insurance, which is the insurance of John Smith that hit you, will either pay in a settlement or a verdict if you end up in a lawsuit phase.
Many people expect the at-fault driver's insurance to take over, like you said, once the accident is reported. But why does it usually not work that way?
Yeah, what ends up happening is the way it's set up in Texas, if you have a medical bill, you're responsible for that medical bill. Now, if you have health insurance, your health insurance will have some type of contract where they will take care of it. But at the end of the day, it seems unfair that, someone through no fault of your own caused your injury. But the way the system's set up is that you're not going to get piecemeal paid through the process, right? You would think I go to the ER, their insurance pays. I go to pain management, their insurance pays. I get some imaging done because I'm not resolving. We need to see objective findings. Their insurance pays. But that's not how it's set up. It's set up that you incur a bill. You're responsible for that bill, and at some point you have to pay it, whether it be up front, whether it be through copays, or whether on the back end of a case.
Where does health insurance fit into an injury case? What do people, misunderstand about using their own coverage for an accident?
I think people are scared to use their health insurance. If people are scared to use their insurance at all, they're worried my rates will change, my rates will go up. But the reality is your health insurance should, in theory, negotiate a rate with the hospitals or with the medical provider. And people should use their health insurance when they can. So there's something called a charge master list. Charge master list is almost like a menu of this medical procedure was provided, this medicine was provided, this type of service we provide. And it lists out what they will charge for certain types of things. Now, they don't hand it to you when you walk into the hospital like a menu at a restaurant, but under certain laws, they're supposed to make that stuff pretty transparent on what those costs would be. But your health insurance can negotiate a rate better for you on those charge master than if you don't have insurance. Oftentimes, they will charge 10 different rates for the same procedure 10 times at the same hospital the same week, depending if you have Aetna or an HMO or a PPO or different types of care. So, use your health insurance when you can. Understand that your health insurance, though, is entitled to get paid back out of the settlement. So it's not like it's resolved just because you paid your copay.
Wow. So in Texas, what are the Med Pay and PIP benefits, those PIP benefits, and how do they fit into paying for care after an accident?
Yeah, so in Texas, there's something called PIP, like you mentioned, that's personal injury protection, and then there's Med Pay. So these are no-fault insurance policies. If I get in a car wreck, I can use my PIP or I can use Med Pay to pay certain medical bills. In fact, PIP is more extensive than Med Pay. PIP could be used to pay for expenses because you miss some time for work, so you have to pay for some groceries. It doesn't have to be just for the medical. But what ends up happening is everybody in Texas is entitled to PIP unless they reject it in writing. So even if you have a car wreck where you may have questions about did they run the stop sign or whether or not there's a fault or not, you're still entitled to, whether there's fault or not, to PIP. You're still entitled to Med Pay. The question becomes, did your insurance tell you go ahead and check this box that says I reject PIP? If you reject PIP, obviously you don't have it. Now, the PIP does not require you to pay it back. Once you have PIP, once you recover your PIP, insurance companies will usually pay you out the PIP if you can prove that your medical record is a certain amount, if you have a smaller PIP amount. So if I have $2,500 in PIP, that's fine. If you have a larger PIP policy, like $100,000, it's very common the insurance company starts nickel and diming your policy and saying, well, this bill, is it really related to the wreck? Really is that? But always get an itemized list line by line. Your lawyer should be going through that, or someone in their office, and saying, hey, look, why did you put on the PIP that they're getting treatment for sciatica when this is a shoulder injury? So just to make sure that the actual charges that are getting pulled out from the PIP actually, in fact, are related to the wreck is always important.
So suppose someone needs that treatment but can't afford appointments, imaging or specialist care, what options might exist while the case is still pending?
Well, if people have PIP, of course, we talked about that can cover it. MedPay can cover some. If you have health insurance, that can cover some. But sometimes you have a procedure that's more extensive. Sometimes you don't have those options. There are certain doctors that will get paid on the back end of settlements. They will work with you for deferred payments. Although those type of charges, people need to realize you will have to pay those. Those will be owed to the doctor. So that's just when you're sitting down talking to your lawyer and saying, hey, look, they have $50,000 in insurance, I have 30,000 in medical, needs to be understood that that's going to get paid out of that 50 if that's all that's covering it. So people can see doctors' offices that will see them on deferred payments, but a doctor's office is like any business, right? I want to know what my cash flow is coming in for each quarter, for each month. I want to know when I'm getting paid in January. I want to get paid when I'm getting paid in February, and so on. So there's a lot of doctors like, we aren't going to agree to a deferred payment plan because we have to know how we're going to pay rent and payroll. And that's fair. So there are sometimes limited options, but there are a lot of really brilliant doctors, board certified, triply board certified doctors in Texas and all over the country that recognize that people can't afford care but are deserving of it and are seriously injured, and that putting off that care could cause their injuries to get worse. So they will treat people with an understanding that, hey, we could get paid obviously later whenever there's a settlement or a jury judgment.
So, letters of protection can help people get treatment during the case, but what should someone understand before going that route?
Yeah, so letter of protection, it's very interesting. And this is my one political plug for the whole podcast. Please pay attention to what your legislatures are doing. There was a House Bill 30 that was almost passed last year. They are going to attempt it again in 2027. If it doesn't pass then, check it again in 2029. It in part covers what we're talking about, information letter related to letters of protection. Letter of protection is basically a contract between someone in the doctor's office saying, look, you're going to be giving this medical treatment. You're not getting paid for this medical treatment yet that you provide my client. We agree to pay you when the money comes in out of it. So those are for those doctors that are saying, hey, look, we're able to and want to help people. We understand that we've taken a Hippocratic oath. We understand that, we are able in a financial position to help these people that don't have a check to hand me today. They don't have, a health insurance provider is going to pay me today. They can't afford a copay today. We're going to take care of them with the understanding that when this case settles, when this case gets a jury verdict, we will get the payment from that.
A settlement does come in and people assume the money is simply theirs. What medical bills or claims can still have to be, paid out of that recovery?
Well, everything, right? If I have any type of medical from the date of the wreck till my last day of treatment, that is recoverable. If I have a lien, let's say I have, and I know we'll get into this a little bit more later. If I have a healthcare plan through my employer, it may be what's called an ERISA lien that they're able to attach to me. If I have Medicare and Medicaid, Medicare is entitled to be paid back. In fact, they're able to attach what's called a super lien. They're able to attach a superior right to recovery than other entities. And then, what people don't anticipate is things that aren't necessarily related to the wreck. If you owe child support, that you can have a child support lien. The Texas OAG's office or the Office of the Attorney General's will get involved, and they will take some prorated amount or negotiate some amount to say this has to go to the kids that are owed money. So it's not just going to be medical necessarily. If other entities have rights or liens against you, like a child support, we are going to have to pay them out of the settlement.
How does confusion about paying for treatment lead people to delay care or maybe stop at treatment early or make decisions that hurt them financially?
I think people get scared about the process. I get a lot of calls where people are like, hey, they're saying that a third party creditor debt, is going to say I owe debt. And now they're going to say that they're going to come after me. And I don't want this to affect my credit. And I just want to get treatment, but I don't want this to affect my ability to get rent or to get a job somewhere. So people get scared about that and they stop treating. And sometimes then their symptoms get worse because they didn't actually resolve the issue when they could have done so. I think another thing is they start putting off their treatment and the kind of the same results. People don't really understand, the process. They're worried about how much it's going to cost. And sometimes people will obviously avoid paying medical bills if they're saying, hey, look, I got to pay for my apartment. My kids got to go to school. Yes, I'm in pain, but these are things I want to put off. But they can actually take care of some of this if there is a proper network of treaters or providers that treat them. So they shouldn't delay treatment if they really need it.
Hmm. So someone sitting at home with medical bills, piling up after an accident may feel overwhelmed before they even know whether they have a case. What would you want that person to understand about their options, Trey?
I mean, I think the first thing people should do is breathe. And I really mean that, right? The bills look like a mountain, but there's a pathway through this process. So you may have coverage where you don't think it. Look at your own insurance policy. See if you did reject PIP. Maybe you did. Maybe you have UIM or underinsured motorists. Look and you see that. The other party has auto insurance. It could be that your health care that you could get provided. It could be that a doctor will take a deferred payment. And so if you're scared of that, I understand, check with the law office you work with. See if some of the doctors can work with you on deferred payment. But really, we do this for a living, right? We carry the burden. We figure out who pays what. We'll send out notices, make sure all that's understood. So that's our burden, not yours. Your job is to get well, and our job is to handle all the rest of it.
Good stuff. Trey, my brother, thank you so much.
Thanks, Evan. Always good to talk to you.
All right. That's it for today's episode of the San Antonio Injury and Employment Law Podcast with Trey Cammack. If you'd like to learn more about Trey Cammack at Cammack Law PLLC, visit CammackLawPLLC.com. You'll find information about personal injury cases, what to expect during the legal process, and resources designed to help Texans make informed decisions after a serious injury. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.